Research shows that by age 7, the majority of your self-concept, the way you view yourself, and what you believe you deserve is already formed. So, is there a right way to change self-concept? 6 years ago, when I went through a divorce, my self-concept shattered. I didn't know who I was anymore. As a therapist, I thought if I could understand the psychology behind self-concept, I could start to repair it, and that would start to fix the pain. But the more I researched, the more I realized that healing your self-concept isn't about repeating affirmations or telling yourself that you love yourself. It's about taking aligned action to teach your mind and body who you are really now, in this moment. And I'm going to share the 5 lessons I learned about self-concept from a psychological perspective. We all have an idea of who we are, that I am story that plays behind the background of our life. But most people confuse self-concept with self-esteem or motivation. The problem is motivation runs out and self-esteem wavers. You can have an amazing day, feel unstoppable, and then one comment, one text, or one rejection sends you spiraling. Why is that? Because your identity, your self-concept, is still rooted in the version of yourself who doubts and people pleases. From a psychological perspective, your self-concept is the collection of beliefs, narratives, and emotional memories that define who you believe yourself to be. It's your nervous system's felt sense of safety behind those beliefs. If deep down your body doesn't feel safe feeling loved, successful, or seen, your actions will always find a way to sabotage it. Therefore, instead of trying to think positive, the first area of work we need to do is to become aware of what your body already believes to be true. Before we get into the next lesson, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cassandra Mullick. I'm a therapist and a relationship coach, and this channel is all about healing from heartbreak and becoming the person that you've always wanted to be. I believe that heartbreak can lead into transformation if you allow it to. And if you're interested in getting more information on self-concept, I do have a free worksheet that you can get down below. I'll link it in the description. Okay, onwards. Here's the hard part about being in a helping profession. When I was going through my divorce and I wanted to reinvent my self-concept, I thought the more I pushed harder, the more books I read, the more workshops I attended, the more affirmations I did, the better I would get. But the truth is, motivation is like a sugar rush. It spikes and then it crashes. The difference between motivation and self-concept is your identity, who you are. When you're saying things like, I'm trying to be more confident, you're also saying that I'm not confident right now. Your brain believes that the information you're feeding it is true, and it believes that to be the truth and will act accordingly. When you shift your self-concept, you don't have to try to become something. You embody it now, in this moment. From a psychological lens, this is called self-perception theory. The more you behave like the person you want to be, the faster your brain will rewire to believe that you already are that person. This allows you to cross the bridge of, someday I'm going to do this, to I am doing this now, and I am the person who can do this. Quick example. I was going to go to the gym yesterday actually, and I was getting ready to go, and my current self was like, no, you don't want to do that. Just stay home, lie on the couch. That's what you want. And I started to channel the version of me that I am, that I want to be, that I'm embodying. And I decided that no, the person who I want to be would go to the gym and do the workout. That's what it means to embody what you're wanting to be. Do the thing. You don't have to learn about it. You don't have to do the affirmations. This plan is about action, going forward and just doing the thing, which is then in turn going to help your brain rewire. Since we're talking about rewiring, let's dive into the nervous system, which controls our thoughts, behaviors, and actions. One of the biggest things I see in my practice and even within myself when I'm working on my self-concept is that your nervous system has to feel safe with your new self-concept. And the reality is, you can say things like, I'm worthy of love all day long, but if your body equates love with chaos or rejection or betrayal, it's going to resist it. It won't be accepting of that love because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. That's why self-concept work isn't just about mindset, it's somatic. Your body remembers patterns of safety and threat. So when you upgrade to your new identity, it might trigger fear within your body, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your body isn't used to calm and consistent love. Therefore, we need to start small. Here's where we need to regulate our nervous system when we're taking those small steps, so our nervous system starts to rewire. This can look like grounding exercises, breathing exercises, or even journaling after affirmations to just check in with your body to see how you're feeling. This teaches your body that peace, consistency, and confidence are safe states to live in. Therefore, your new identity stops becoming an act and it becomes your baseline. So at this point, you may be asking, so how do I actually change my self-concept? You've been talking a lot, Cassandra. Well, that's what we're going to go over next. There are 3 pillars: story, evidence, and environment. If you only focus on affirmations, but your environment and your behavior contradict them, your brain isn't going to buy in. So here's where we get a bit more technical. When we are feeling discouraged, when we're not feeling confident in our skin, or when we're procrastinating on something, I want you to try this. Write the story, write the narrative down. So here's how this is going to work. When we're feeling a certain way or we're not feeling confident or worthy, what we're going to do is examine the story that we're telling ourselves, and we're going to start to rewrite the inner dialogue. I'm learning to trust myself every day. Language matters. There's lots of evidence behind that, and the stories that we tell ourselves become our reality. So even just that shift can make a difference when rebuilding your self-concept. We also then want to have evidence behind what we're doing to rebuild our self-concept. So this means taking small aligned actions that prove your new identity to be true. Just like I did earlier in the example of me not wanting to go to the gym, I took an aligned action to actually get my butt there and do a workout. And when we continue to provide the evidence to our nervous system, these benefits compound. And as they compound, we get a larger return because we're keeping those small promises to ourselves. And lastly, environment. Surround yourself with people, content, and spaces that reflect the version of you that you're becoming. When you take these actions for yourself, your new identity isn't going to be built by force or bullying yourself, but it's going to be based on congruency and consistency, which again will compound and bring you to the new version of yourself. I remember when I started doing this work, and there was always a bit of doubt in the back of my mind, asking like, well, is this really working? Are you really changing? Just a friendly reminder, these things do take time. And again, the more you compound those small steps, the more confident you're going to feel in the new identity that you're forming. But here's a trick. The biggest indicator that your self-concept is changing is when the same things that used to trigger you don't anymore. So for example, if someone criticizes you, instead of collapsing and withdrawing or isolating, you just shrug it off. You also stop over-explaining, stop chasing, not because you don't care, but because you finally feel safe being you. You are fulfilling your own needs. And psychologically, this is integration. When your thoughts, emotions, and behavior is all aligned. Your nervous system no longer views worthiness as a threat. What a good feeling that would be. And therefore, you're no longer trying to heal into a version of yourself. You're living as her. How amazing is that? So I want you to remember the biggest lesson that I've learned out of all of the research that I did is that self-concept isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to doubt yourself. And if you want to learn more about building self-concept, feel free to get my handout, which I'll link in the description below. And if you're on your journey of rebuilding self-concept as well as your self-esteem, check out this playlist up here.